And if you ever get someone that says, because this has happened before, oh, I don't believe in contracts. I just want to, I believe in a handshake deal. Run as fast as you can because there's not such a thing as a handshake deal.
Hey, it's Nate Disarro, and welcome to Titans of Industry, the podcast where I talk to industry leaders and innovators who are at the top of their game and leading the pack in their fields, uncovering some of the best stories in today's business landscape. In this episode, I speak with Shayla and Scott Copas, a power couple that are creating an all-encompassing lifestyle brand. Shayla has built a very successful interior design business working with people all over to create the home of their dreams. Recently, she's launched her own design books along with signature furniture product lines, and now she's pushing out an elite travel planning business. And Scott Copas is the back end of Shayla's endeavors, primarily working with the operations, finance, and logistics side of the business. With his background in commercial construction and business management, he completes this entrepreneurial powerhouse duo. Now, let's get to the episode. But before we do, let's talk about content strategy and video for marketing your business. Our team at Content Titan is committed to great storytelling no matter what industry you're in. It's crucial to engage, entertain, inform, and captivate your audience, and video is the best way to do it. Having worked with people and organizations of all shapes and sizes, our team has the experience to deliver the right content at the right price. We are easy to do business with, and we know how to get you results. Visit contenttitan.co to learn more. Now here's the episode with Shayla and Scott Copas. Well, Shayla, Scott, thanks so much for jumping on the podcast. I guess I've known you guys for a handful of years now, and always, anytime I see you or see what you're up to, never ceases to amaze me that you're in a different part of the world, coming out with a new book. Scott, right there by your side the whole way. So I'd love to just kind of start with, give me a little insight to what it is you guys do on a daily basis and how, we ended up having this conversation today.
Wow. So it's a myriad of things. I'm an entrepreneur. So our business is lifestyle, which encompasses quite a bit. We never know what we're going to do from day to day. We started in interior design, and that's going better than ever. People are wanting to redesign their homes since COVID. It's just like they got to look at them for so long, and they realized that they wanted to make changes. So we expect that to stay pretty strong over the next several years. But we also started a travel division of the company for people who love design and are inspired by design. And I can design their personal travel, as well as our main pillar of that business is taking people on luxury trips. And so I guide them on luxury design-inspired VIP virtuoso trips. And we're touring the world. All luxury travelers know virtuoso, and they get excited when you say, oh yeah, we're virtuoso. We can make sure you get all the VIP perks. You will be a rock star when you walk into that location that day at that hotel, and the general manager will know your name. And they're actually, on some occasions, we send pictures ahead of time.
Well, clearly I'm traveling the wrong way, so I need to sign up for a trip sooner rather than later. But where are some of the places you've taken people? What are some of the most exciting destinations?
Well, we're getting ready to launch taking people places. I'm already booking travel for people that are going on their own with their families, but we'll be taking them to Scotland, Morocco, South Africa. Wait, it's a large list. Peru, Alaska. The list is long over the next 2 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got interior design. You've got travel that's inspired by design. What else do you have your hand in?
We own a marketing company. So the Hive PR Marketing, we launched in 2020, and it mainly focuses on designers, architects, and contractors. With it focusing on the design industry and contractors, I wanted to stay right down the vein of what I always do as a designer and what I know is design. So the travel has the design aspect to it. The marketing company, of course, has the design portion to it. And then being a designer, we also are big into product design right now. So,
Interesting.
yeah, we've signed several licensing deals, and we expect the portfolio to expand by quite a lot in the next couple of years.
So, Scott, I mean, that in and of itself is a quick overview of things that I would see as a bit of a challenge to kind of keep under one header. Um, Talk to me a little bit about your role in all that and how you wrangle the cat, so to speak.
Well, I've always handled the financial side of the business, and that one's probably the easiest part of it. Even though sometimes I don't even know what an invoice is for because she's going in so many different directions. And then I do help in the operational side, logistics, and and sometimes when she has some construction issues on one of her projects, not maybe issues, but what's the best way to solve the problem, I'll go out and meet with the clients and help them with that. But the unique part of this entire business goes back to her interior design. That is a very personal relationship you have with your clients. You find out a lot about them. And and that helps in designing trips and travel for them and their family. I would never have thought of that, but I've seen it, and we really haven't even officially launched it yet. But it's an amazing part of the business. The product design, I do get involved in some of the product design when she and her team are presenting that to one of the vendors or manufacturers. I look at it from a constructability standpoint. I have a talent for that. So I'll jump in sometimes and say I think there might be a better way to manufacture it. I don't pretend to know how to design it or suggest that you might want to do it this way. It's all from a practicality and constructability standpoint because and controlling costs for us and the manufacturer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, getting into the genesis of this newest business venture, the design inspired travel. You know, anytime I'm traveling somewhere nowadays, one of the first places I go is to look where to stay is Airbnb. And when I'm looking through, it's that very point. I'm looking at the design of the way the place is laid out. Is it something that fits my taste? Is it something that this is a place I want to stay? But then also, I mean, I just got back from Italy and had a wonderful time exploring Florence and different towns in Italy. And you, same thing, find yourself being drawn to places that are visually pleasing to you. Yeah. So is that kind of what inspired the idea? Is you saw this niche, or how did it come about?
So it's twofold. My clients were asking me where they should travel. And, we travel quite a bit. And I thought, I can add that facet to the business as well as my followers were wanting to go along on the trips with me. They were watching where we were going to South Africa or if I was going to Peru. And they're saying, oh, we want to do this, but we're a little scared. We're a little apprehensive to go to someplace like Africa. It is a little scary the first time. So we'd love to go with you. And that was really how that all kind of evolved, was through my clients asking me where they should go, and then through my followers on social media asking to go with me.
And then, and if I could jump in on that, it kind of evolved because if you know Shayla, she's as an interior designer, she posts everywhere we go, and we've been very blessed to have gone to travel to a lot of very unique places, and posts all of this information and beautiful photographs and actually videos of what's going on. And that generated all this interest from her clients and from her social media friends. So it kind of evolved that way, even though had no idea she was planning on starting a travel business. But you might want to tell them what made your mind up on that, where we were, and what made your mind up on starting a travel business.
We were on an island. We had just left South Africa, and we went over to Mauritius. And at the time, we had a travel agent, so I didn't own a travel agency back then. And we were booked someplace that we'd spent quite a bit on this room, and we were in the nicest suite that they had. And we arrived there, and there was no air conditioning. And it was 100 degrees or 90 something degrees. And I was absolutely miserable. So keep in mind, before this, I had already had clients asking me about travel. I had already had my followers asking me about going on trips with me. And I'm suffering in this room, and it really was suffering. Plus, there were rabid cats that were, and I'm a cat fan. I really am, because I have this sweet little kitty right now I'm saving. But there were rabid, feral cats on our back porch that would try to attack me every time I went out the door. And then it was hot. So, anyway, it just was a miserable situation. And at that point, I thought, you know what? I really want to prevent these things from happening to other people. And so my followers have already been asking me about this. My clients have asked me about this. This is God telling me I need my own travel agency, and we just need to add this to Shayla Copas Lifestyle. So I literally sat in my bed because I wouldn't go outside. The rabid cats were there. I was mad at the world. I was there for 7 days, I believe, 5 to 7 days. Maybe it was 7 days, because we were there longer than any place else. And they also couldn't feed me very well because of my allergies. And I was mad at him, so he wasn't in the room. And so I just got online and I started researching starting my own travel business. And I realized that I needed a thing called a host agency. So I started contacting host agencies during this miserable jail sentence. And by the time we left, I had my mind made up. I was going to start a travel agency. I realized, people do need an advocate when they travel. They need an advocate. But then also I was like, okay, so isn't this going to be kind of confusing to people that I have a design business and I have a marketing business, and now I have this, and now I have this travel business. But I felt like if I kept it along the vein of design, then I'd be fine. But then something else happened along the way. And when I started telling people I was going to start this travel business, some of them care about the design elements, but a lot of them don't. And they started calling me saying, can you book my travel? And we haven't even launched it yet. And we have a ton of travel clients.
But I mean, how many businesses out there were started because somebody had a terrible experience and realized there's a better way to do something, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's the nature of what entrepreneurs do every day is solve a problem that nobody's taken the initiative to solve because they experienced the problem themselves.
And you think about it, and fortunately, Shayla's an influencer, as you know. And you feel a lot more comfortable if you were the person traveling, having that kind of service. So,
from both y'all's standpoint, the value of having good partners and what that can do to make or break a business.
Oh, absolutely. So good partners will make or break a business for sure. And I think a lot of it is vetting those partners, making sure that you align together. Because I've always said, if you align with those partners, there's nothing that you can't do, and no mountain that you can't climb together, because people can feel that energy coming from you. And that makes that business really survive and go further than if they were on their own. And I think that's why I've become really involved from a product design standpoint for manufacturers, as well as an ambassador as well for those manufacturers. And we continue to get more in our portfolio every year that we're going to be announcing soon. We cannot wait to announce the ones that we've been working on for 2 years, because it actually takes several years to develop these types of partnerships. You don't just go in and shake someone's hand and it's done, right? It takes 2 to 3 years to develop a product line and to develop that relationship.
Depending on kind of what your business is, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, I think a lot of people have this idea of whoever the first person is that can help me do what I'm thinking I want to do, let's just take it and run with it. But every partnership, just like any, business partnership, any vendor relationship, you're going to have challenges and struggles along the way where you might disagree, you might whatever. But to your point, the more you kind of align on the front end, then you can work through those problems. You can overcome those challenges. You can, have a real special thing that happens.
Yes. And a lot of it needs to be done contractually on the front end. And that's what a lot of people in business forget about, is making sure that they have really solid contracts. They don't want to pay attorneys. They don't want to go through all the legal portions of it, but in the end, it'll bite them. So if you have a solid contract and you go into it on the front end stating, this is what I expect, now tell me what you expect, then nobody's going to be disappointed. But if you don't, people tend not to want to do that because they're afraid they're going to scare them away, right? But they're not going to scare, what they'll do is scare away a partner they don't want to have from the contractual side. So we're adamant about making sure that we're very transparent on the front end, and that we also encourage our partners to be transparent so that there are no surprises, and then things turn out real well. And I think that's why things take so long too, is in the negotiation side of it. When we have one that we negotiated, I think it was in 2021, early 2021, that we will not be releasing until 2023. We've already been designing, things are at the factory in production, but we won't be telling people about it and releasing it to consumers until 2023.
It's crazy. I think one of the most crucial things you just said was the fact that essentially you take long on the front end to get these contracts done, but don't worry about scaring people away, because sometimes that's the best case scenario.
You want to.
And I think a lot of times, business owners think, well, it's my one shot at this partnership, or my one shot at this growth stage of the company, or whatever the case may be. But the reality is there's tons of opportunities out there. You got to seek out the right ones.
And if you ever get someone that says, because this has happened before, oh, I don't believe in contracts, I just want to, I believe in a handshake deal. Run as fast as you can, because there's not such a thing as a handshake deal.
Yeah, that worked about 30
happen.
years ago.
Yeah, and there's always going to be something that comes up along the way that you're going to want to address later on. Why not address it now and get it out of the way?
Yeah. All right. Storytelling, content creation, putting yourself out there. Scott, as you alluded to, it's vitally important to kind of, let people know what you're up to, because you never know what business may come of it, or what opportunities may come of it.
There's no telling what's in her mind that I don't know about yet, but she's the storyteller. She's the face of the business. And so we back her, and we want her coming up. We want her traveling. Prior to COVID, she was doing a lot of public speaking, and that's starting to come back now. And we went, 2 years, I guess, where she had an entire book tour where she was going to be gone nearly 9 months on the first book. She's working on the second book, and that got canceled because of COVID.
And then I got even more serious about travel. And you know why? Because I knew that people were going to be stuck at home, and just like they would want to start designing, I knew that they would want to start traveling again, and that traveling itch, so to speak, would build and build and build, and it's paying off.
That's
and
awesome.
I guess that's just part of being an entrepreneur. You try to figure out
100%.
what you can do to fill people's passions, and you go for it.
Yeah. Well, we used to use the analogy all the time. How many, you got to have a bunch of lines in the water, because you never know which one is going to catch a fish, So if you don't have multiple things happening and figuring out what you're going to do, you never know.
But the issue here is all of them caught a fish. So we have to figure out how to keep putting the line back out and from a workflow standpoint, because we all know now workflow is so important with businesses, on how to keep them all going from a workflow standpoint. So we've had to invest in workflow software for each business, and it gets really expensive.
And there's multiple softwares, especially on the design side, both on the interior design and the product design side, and as well as the travel side. I mean, the amount of
how many tabs do you have open on your browser at any time?
Yeah, you ought to go up and see it.
64 this morning is what I had.
Unbelievable.
And people always laugh every time we get on a Zoom and I share my screen, and you can always hear people going, why do you have so many tabs up? And I'm an entrepreneur and I have several businesses, and so I've got to go from my travel software to my interior design software to my marketing software all day long.
I feel that it's every time I try and close some down, I'm like, no, I need that. You
Yeah.
constantly go back and forth. So how important is telling your own story? How important is it for you to be vocal about what you're doing, how you're solving people's problems, and putting your own message out there?
It's important to me because I want to inspire people. I think that people tend to get going in their direction and in their path in life, and they forget to get inspired, and they forget what they can do. Sometimes they just go to their job each day and they think this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life, but maybe they're not really fulfilled. And I always hope that when I tell my story that I'm going to inspire someone to go out and follow their dreams and go out and do the things that they'd always hoped that they could achieve.
I love that. I have a good friend who he was telling me one time. He said, Nate, people can learn pretty much anything they want to learn. It's not a matter of knowledge. It's a matter of inspiration and motivation.
Yes.
They need to be inspired. They need to be motivated. And then they'll learn whatever they want to learn. And of course, experience and the vision to get it perfect and have a product to sell or whatever is certainly something that takes time. But it starts with that inspiration and motivation. And that's really what gets us going.
It is. It is. And with me, it takes me a while because I'm an overachiever. And so I never want to do anything halfway. And that is a little difficult. So with the travel business, deciding in 2020 in 2020, making that decision in 2000, sorry, I got to back up. 2021, actually making the plunge and investing in it. And now we're in 2022. So it takes time if you're an overachiever, and if you feel like you have to have everything, well, from a perfectionist standpoint together, it can be a little daunting, but we're moving.
That's awesome. All right, Scott, I want to start with you on this one. As an entrepreneur, as somebody that run big businesses, you always wish you knew something, and then you eventually learn it. So what's something that you wish you knew earlier on in business or in this role you're in now that you had to learn the hard way, or that would have made a lot more sense if you had learned it a lot sooner?
Well,
listen to my wife.
that's obvious. I wish I had, and I wish I had left the construction industry sooner, because I had been in construction for 44 years. So, and the industry was great to me, and did well in it. But I got to the point that I was not enjoying it. But I was watching everything that Shayla and Megan and their team was doing, and I was almost a little jealous because they were having so much fun. I was fortunate that I could go to some of the shows and to different markets, and I just realized how much fun it was and how interesting it was, and met a tremendous amount of people because she knows a lot of people, and we had the best time, and I envied that, and I wish I'd have done it 2 or 3 years prior to. I would have known a lot more about their business, and especially on the interior design side. And I had some idea about marketing. I probably understood the marketing better than I did the interior design side, other than I have a total appreciation for their design concepts and I fortunately get to see a lot of the projects they do, and the products they're designing with their team, and I'm just absolutely amazed.
So what would you say to, whether it's younger people or just anybody out there that's looking at kind of, I think I can do this, I think I should do this, but I'm stuck in this world, or I feel like now's not the right time? What would you advise someone who's got that mindset but is kind of afraid to take that jump?
I think Shayla said it well a minute ago, is if you have a dream, pursue it. You'll figure out a way to make it happen. Logistics are just logistics. If you've got an idea and you've got a dream and you're willing to make the investment, both in time and sometimes money. There's a lot of you may not have money, but people out there do, that are willing to invest in you. And so they need to take that opportunity because they'll regret it. I've been fortunate to counsel a lot of younger people, especially in my latter years, and I tell them that. They say, well, I'm thinking about moving into, mostly in the construction industry, but not all. A lot of architects, a lot of younger architects I've visited with. And they're talking about, well, I want to go out on my own. And I said, well, I know a dozen that have done really well. But you got to take that step. And getting out of your comfort zone is a problem. And if you're living week to week on a paycheck, you're basically held ransom. You've got to figure out how to cut your expenses, and finance is probably my strongest suit, and learn to operate. And you've heard this a million times, you can see in books, figure out how to operate on half your budget. Then you can take the rest of the money and do what you need to do to move forward to achieve your dreams.
And I think that goes for both the personal side and the business side.
Absolutely. They're one and the same.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about personal life and business life. They're one and the same with us.
Well, and it's often said that, investors often invest in the entrepreneur, not the idea. They're if you have passion and vision as a person, people will give you money. They'll give you help. That's the other thing. A recent conversation is people always wish they asked for help sooner, because people will freely give help if you ask for it. But way too often, people are afraid to ask, or they think they got to do it on their own, or it's going to cost too much money or whatever. But I mean, how many times have you voluntarily sat down with somebody younger and offered, a piece of advice or a helping hand? And
I can't count the amount of times. And sometimes it was a personal tragedy or a personal issue, not just business and where am I going financially and all of that. It's a combination of a lot of things. I've been fortunate. I've had that opportunity to do it many times.
I love it. Shayla, I'm curious, what about you as far as, what's one thing you wish you learned sooner that you ultimately either learned the hard way or are still trying to figure out?
Everything does not have to be perfect. When I started talking about me being a perfectionist or an overachiever, that has gotten in the way of my productivity before. But there's a happy medium there. So because I'm a perfectionist, that's why people hire me, because they know that I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and every detail will be taken care of. But I have to figure out how to not expect every single thing to be perfect, like before we launch, like just with the travel business. I could have launched this business a couple months ago, or maybe even 6 months ago, but I wanted everything to be perfect and all my, T's crossed and my I's dotted. And it's gotten in the way of that. But fortunately for me, people already know I'm doing this, so they're hiring me anyway. But
well, great line on that front is, don't let perfection get in the way of excellence, right? Mm-hmm. We can still be excellent without being perfect.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we tend to be too hard on ourselves. I mean, do you ever feel like that?
100%.
Just too hard on yourself. And I feel like I'm too hard on myself. And people, even when we do something that we feel is halfway, people are like, oh, it was amazing.
Well, yeah, because we feel like everything, as entrepreneurs, everything that leaves the door it's a reflection of who we are. That's kind of what our mind says. But the other outside world isn't looking at you in a mirror. They're looking at something that they're not used to seeing. And so they don't know what to think of it, but they see it and they think it's excellent, while you think it could be better. So there's a paradigm shift of what you think matters. And I'm speaking about any entrepreneur versus what the public sees, and they may not know it could be better. They may think it's already as good as it can be. And I think that's one of the biggest crutches a lot of people face is just get it out there. Let the world see it, and then tweak it based on the way other people need it to be kind of tweaked.
Based on their reaction.
Exactly. Okay, one of the things that I really like talking about is personality types. Um, and, any entrepreneur, obviously you have to have people around you. You have to have people in your life that either work with you or for you. In y'all's case, as a married couple, talk to me a little bit about how your personalities work well together, and then maybe how there's challenges there that you have to overcome.
Well, I'm somewhat like her in this. It has to be perfect. I'm not as bad, but I'm pretty close. And so, we butt heads a lot, but I think that's what makes us successful, quite frankly. Even in my previous business, I discussed a lot of things with her about what was going on and getting her opinion, and she does the same thing with me. Uh, Finding that happy medium sometimes can be a challenge. We've been fortunate that we ultimately come up with the right decision, but it may take a week of arguing about it or not talking to each other to get there. But that's what good partners do, and so I can't complain about how it's turned out. The process sometimes can be a little challenging, but we've been very, very fortunate. And you know, this is I'm like a kid in a candy shop with all dealing with what they do, and I wake up with a lot more excitement and ready to go to work and learn something. And outside of finances, I can do finances all day long, but it's the other part of it that I really enjoy the most.
So, Scott, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some wisdom with us, and look forward to the next time we catch up.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you so much, Nate. It's great to see you, and I've looked forward to this, and look forward to hearing the podcast. So, thank you again.
So, as far as personalities are concerned, we are very alike in personality. But we do, like Scott mentioned, because we're so alike and we're so passionate about what we do, sometimes we're very stubborn and we can't see the other person's point of view, and it takes us a while, but we always come to that we always come to that point. It just takes us a while. That's the interesting thing about working with your spouse, and especially if you're a lot alike.
Yeah, I completely agree that, there's, I've been a big fan lately of the Enneagram, if you've paid any attention to that, the personality test. And, when you boil it down, there's 9 individual personality types. So you're bound to either be just like somebody or completely opposite. And at the end of the day, we're all after the same things, but we kind of get there a little different way. And it's important to understand that there's nothing wrong with somebody that's totally different from us, and there's nothing wrong with somebody that's just like us. We just kind of have to step back and understand that we're all a little different. That's okay, but we're trying to achieve the same things. We just have to let each person kind of see it their own way for a minute.
Well, and it's fun that you mentioned that, because we didn't take that particular personality test, but we took another back in 2016, and it had a graph and several things that came with it, and we were exactly the same. Every single the way that the graph went up and down and all the different phases of that test was an identical personality.
So give me a little behind the scenes. What are some of the things that stand out about y'all's personalities that are similar?
We're both leaders. We like leadership. We like to get things done. We both are problem solvers. So if somebody has a problem and they call me, I'm likely not to be quiet and just listen. I'm going to tell them what they need to do to fix it. it's um, and we are not scared or afraid to take risks and to go out and do things for the betterment of society as well. We're both very passionate about helping others.
Which is incredibly apparent. Obviously, any entrepreneur is taking some form of risk, but to do it over and over again and keep launching new ideas, new ways to do business. You could just settle in and be comfortable doing what you were doing, but let's go out and try this. And if we fail, we fail, but we took the risk. And what was one of the things that stood out, the first major risk you took and then realized you were successful? Were you paralyzed by taking that risk, or was it something that you felt like this is going to be fun and exhilarating and I don't care if I fail?
Well, I've taken a lot of risks, but my first risk was when I started my first business before I even knew Scott. That was my first risk, was jumping off that diving board and saying, okay, I'm going to start a business. I was a single mom on my own and didn't know if it would work out, but it did.
It's amazing how often it works out. And again, it goes back to that vision and passion and purpose. And if you can align that to the idea, then it's really hard to stop people. I think most people that fail at a business or don't continue on, it's because you lose that passion and that drive.
That's true. And also, when people start looking at what happens to them and becoming a victim, they no longer see what they need to be grateful for, and gratefulness really does promote us to have drive. So something bad, let's say you're working on a new business and something happens and it's just not so good, and so you become the victim and you no longer are in the driver's seat. Once you become the victim, you're no longer in the driver's seat, and so therefore you kind of go down this little hole, the little rabbit hole, and things don't turn out the way they could have if you looked at the positive parts of that situation. And sometimes there are physical things that can happen that you can't control those. But it's the part that's in your mind and in your head that you can control, and that you can pull yourself out of any situation. You just have to try. Because it's never going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect.
Agreed. Over the last couple of years, obviously, everybody's talked about the challenges that we've had to go through with COVID. And in some cases, businesses closed their doors. And in others, people started to thrive and survive because of the business they were in. And everybody's got a little bit of a different story. But even outside of COVID, what's one of the biggest challenges you feel like you faced, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenge in my life that I faced? Oh, wow.
Or business, or however, pick one, right?
That's an entire, not even one novel. That's like 6 or 7. So I've faced a lot of challenges in my life. I would say being a single mom was my biggest challenge in starting that first business.
What kept you going? What gave you the drive and desire to overcome, the idea that I'm sure there were a lot of days you were like, you know what, I just want to go get a job somewhere. This is too hard.
My daughter. I think just having someone depending on me for survival was what kept me going even on the hard days.
Everybody has mentors and people they look up to, and people that are there along the way. So who are I like to call them titans, right? Who are your titans in your life that kind of you look at and are inspired by?
I'm inspired by my husband. I'm not wanting to sound cheesy, but he has really helped me as a business owner over the years. Even though he didn't work with Shayla Copas Lifestyle, he was very involved on the back end with giving that advice each day to keep me going. His mother was also one that was very inspirational to me. She's no longer with us, unfortunately, but we were very close.
Well, now that Scott's not here, we can speak freely about him, but his reputation in community, just the type of person he is, and there's so many people that look up to him and have
Yes.
kind of really respected him throughout his previous career. And it's exciting to see what you guys are going to do, continue doing, and how big this thing's going to get. So what's next for you? I mean, I know we've talked a little bit, you teased the travel business that hasn't even officially launched, but I'm sure you're not even close to done.
On and close to done with businesses.
Just, yeah, where your ideas take you.
Oh, there are several that we are working on. We're now really trying to develop the lifestyle aspect, because before we were Shayla Copas Interiors, and then when we added the Hive Marketing and PR and Shayla Copas Travel, and then our products, we decided to really develop the Shayla Copas lifestyle. And with that, we have a cosmetic line coming out. So, because that really fits in that lifestyle segment, and that cosmetic line will be launched this year.
That's
I
amazing.
can announce that one,
Very cool.
but several of them I can't announce yet.
Of course, understood. Well, I want to jump one more time back into the importance that the storytelling and specifically your social media has played in a lot of what you've done. Everybody starts at zero.
Yeah.
And some of us get to a few hundred, some of us to a few thousand, some of us to tens and hundreds of thousands of followers. But, everybody wants to be there, but not everybody can get there. And so to have the kind of connection and audience that you have, what do you attribute to that? How did you use storytelling and visuals to kind of gain your following?
It had to do with finding my niche, because when you are on social media, there's a million people on social, millions and millions of people on social media, and there are just so many accounts, and people unfollow and follow each day, but they follow the accounts that have a niche and keep them interested and are authentic. Being authentic is the key thing, and then having that niche. And my niche is really interior designers follow me, and people that love interior design in general. But my biggest source of followers is interior designers.
So talk to me about being authentic and kind of telling your own story. How do you keep from straying away and just tell the story that maybe isn't as authentic? Because that's easy to do. A lot of people want to just show their best world or whatever, but how do you remain authentic?
Well, I remain authentic by putting my heart first. And they tell you, you should always put your head first and you should think first. But when you think with your heart and you operate with your heart, but being careful, I'm not saying to, be not think about what you're doing, but when you really operate from the standpoint of your heart, that's when you're authentic. And you don't really worry about the money. If you worry about the money, you're never going to get anywhere. Don't worry about that. It will come. And I listen to my followers. So that's hence the cosmetic line. I did not want to start a cosmetic line, but they kept contacting me. Well, what makeup are you wearing? What color is that lipstick? And same thing with the travel. And so I talked to Scott and I said, do you want to start a cosmetic line? And he said, sure, honey, we'll start a cosmetic line. So that's where that all came from. But it comes from your followers, staying connected to them, listening to them, leading with your heart, and being authentic.
It's so true. I think everywhere you look, anybody you talk to that's had any sense of success with social media and storytelling through those platforms, the number one thing they're going to say is listen. Because a lot of times it's about, what do I need to put out? What do I need to say? But 9 times out of 10, if you're being authentic and you're just putting yourself out there, you got to listen to what people are saying back. They're telling you what they want. You just have to listen.
And you have to respond. So people will sometimes, most people that I know in social media tend not to respond. And I always respond, and those responses come from me. So there's not someone on the back end responding for me. Those are true Shayla responses. And I've developed deep connections with people I've never even met because of that.
To me, it's the equivalent of if you go into a big room and there's somebody on a stage and they're talking to you, you want them afterwards to be down answering your questions and mingling with the crowd. And the best social media accounts, the best, people that, are on social media are the ones who have something to say that people want to listen to, but then come down to the crowd and to your point, respond directly and aren't getting somebody else to respond for them or whatever the case may be. But that's who we want to talk to. And those are the people we're going to go tell other people about. Say, hey, you should listen to this person, because they're willing to listen to you and then give you tips, tricks, or advice back to you. Okay, so one of the things I like to do just to get a little personal feedback is sort of some quick hit questions and answers. So I'll just throw some things out. Give me the first thing that comes to mind. I know you've put out your own books, but what's the best book you've read, or what are you currently reading?
I actually have it right beside me. It's called The Blessing, and it is my favorite book. When I grew up, I had some challenges as a child because I was abused as a child. And this book is my favorite book because it helps us to grow and to understand what we've gone through and take those things for the positive.
Well, and I want to tag on to that for 1 second, because one of the ways that we were introduced to each other was through a great organization. So talk to me about some of the philanthropic things that you've been a part of, and what really kind of hit your heart from that side of things.
Do you have 10 years?
We'll start with a list.
Okay. Well, CAC, Children's Advocacy Centers, with my background, it struck my heart, and I've been, Scott and I both started the Woman of Inspiration event that they now have carried on. I chaired it for 2 years, or we both chaired it for 2 years, and it was a wonderful event.
That's awesome. Well, such a phenomenal organization. The
Yes.
work they do every day needs all the support it can get, but it's near and dear to my heart as well. We've had the fortunate opportunity to help tell those stories and raise awareness and bring advocacy to a problem that most people don't realize is as big as it is.
They don't realize. And the way we are treated and the way we react to it has a lot to do with our future and our passion for life later on and what we achieve. And so we need to get more awareness out so that we can help these children heal while there's still time, because many adults, if they didn't get that healing and counseling when they were young, they've gone so far that it's a lot harder for them to climb out of it.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's move on. So what's a part of your daily routine that you have to do?
I don't drink caffeine, but every morning he takes me, we get in the car with our kitty, with Prada, and we go to get him a sausage biscuit at Burger King, and then we drive down to Starbucks, and I get a hot chocolate, even in the summer. That is our routine every single day.
That's a unique one, but I love it. That is fantastic. All right, what is the best piece of advice you've either given or received?
If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. So if something isn't going right, change the pattern.
I absolutely think that's fantastic. All right, so what is a relatively newly formed habit?
Now that Scott we both work out of the same office, we spend a lot more time together. And every morning we get up we get up and he has his coffee, his first cup of coffee, because he's habitual with the coffee. And I have tea, decaffeinated tea. That's before we go hit Burger King and we hit Starbucks. And we talk in the morning.
The next question is typically, if you could write a book, what would you title it? But you've written books, so tell me a little bit about, this is your chance for a plug. What books have you written?
I've written 4 seasons of entertaining, and right now we're working on 4 seasons of celebration, and we're also working on some other books later on down the line that have been, we've kind of started the brainstorming on those products. And some journals and calendars.
Always something going on.
Yeah, always something. We're just not going to stop.
What is the best thing you've bought in the last year for $100 or less?
Now that I'm in the travel biz, it would be packing cubes, because I pack a lot of luggage. And this is the way that I'm able to get my stuff down to less luggage, is with my packing cubes.
That makes complete sense. All right, favorite destination you've ever been to?
South Africa.
Okay, any specific place there?
So much so that I'm going to Africa again this year. So it'd be twice in 1 year, which is, it's a long ways to travel.
It's a good trip.
favorite destination, Swaloo, and we will be taking people on a group trip there to Swaloo in 2024 or 23. Sorry, there's so many group trips that I'm trying to get all of my dates right. But in 2023, we'll be taking a group of people to Swaloo and then to another resort as well. Well, they call them camps, lodges there. I've got to get that right, the terminology, because I'm going to be certified in Africa by the end of this year.
That's awesome.
Scott and I are flying there again for my certification. I just went there to do some filming and shooting for the first book. So we had a videographer and a photographer, Jason Masters, with us, and we went to shoot.
I followed along on
Or the
social
second
media
book, sorry.
on that trip, and
You did?
It made me jealous.
It was crazy. Yeah, it's the second book. I think I said first book, but second book, it's over the top crazy. You'll have to go on the group trip.
Let's go. I'm ready. Bags are packed. My packing cubes are ready to go.
Yeah.
In fact, I just had a conversation last week about a potential documentary series that we might do, that one of the episodes would be in South Africa. So
Really?
I may have to go anyway.
Well,
I'll have
Swaloo,
to check with you on how to make it
Swaloo
right.
has the most endangered animals there and the rarest. So the only place that you can find a meerkat is in the Kalahari Desert that I'm aware of. And if I'm wrong, someone please social media me and let me know, because I've been saying that forever. But the meerkat is only in the Kalahari Desert, and you can be up close and personal. One even ran over my friend Jason's head while we were there, because we were down on the ground with them, and they pop out of a hole like Pop Goes the Weasel. So cute and so special. And then a brown hyena. So, I mean, I know there's a ton of hyenas in the world, but the brown hyena is there, and we got to see the brown hyena too. And they are so rare that people don't always see them when they go to Swaloo, but they came out for us.
That's amazing. And this docuseries that we're looking at doing would be a conservation group that wants to
Yes.
tell these stories, and so it would be fascinating for sure. Quick shout out to Jason Masters, one of the greatest photographers out there. What was it like having him along on your safari adventures for the book?
Oh, wow. That was a pinch me moment. You know, he's been shooting quite a few chapters of the book, but going all the way to South Africa with him. And then my best friends, Jeremy and Jason, were there as well. And Michelle Cheeseman, who's one of the best videographers, besides you, of course, were with me. But it was a pinch me moment to have Jason there the whole time, grabbing these unbelievable images of this journey. And so I've actually gotten to see them.
Yeah,
And they're amazing images.
he's so good.
He's so good, but he's never let it go to his head.
Yeah,
He
well,
is
he's the most down to earth.
humble human being I know.
All right, couple more questions for you. What is a guilty pleasure that you have?
I have a ton of those. And oh boy, travel is a guilty pleasure. I love it, and I'm obsessed with going new places, and like going places for adventure, like the Amazon, or just some place that might be scary to someone else, and having a anaconda around my neck. Yeah, I did that.
Snakes are my number one most
scared?
feared animal. I
Really?
can't stand them. I'll go swimming with sharks, but
But
don't.
you won't touch a snake.
Mm-mm.
Well, I had an anaconda around my neck.
No, I'm good.
So yeah, and I love purses and shoes. Yeah.
I can envision what the collection would look like, but I won't ask to see a picture of it.
Yeah, well, I've quit buying purses and shoes because I have no more room for them in the closet. So unless I want to get rid of something, I'm not buying anything new.
That's fair. I think that's a good rule, and everybody
Yeah.
should abide by that rule.
Been replaced by travel.
That's right. Okay, music. Are you a music fan? Do you have a favorite artist or musician?
I don't have a favorite artist, but I am a music fan, and I love rap music. Yeah, that always is a shock to some people. I love rap music, hip hop, classical, country, especially like Metallica and the old rock. Yeah.
So,
And I will jam out in my office at full blast up there.
are you and Scott going to Burger King and Starbucks in the morning with Metallica and Cardi B on?
I totally wish we were, but he likes talk radio. Yeah. So he cannot stand my music.
So that's one area you guys are definitely different.
Oh, yeah, very different. And I actually like talk radio too, but I don't listen to it day in and day out. I just like to get my mind off of the world's issues. And I feel like music helps you, it motivates you and makes you happy.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Shayla, what have we skipped over? What have we missed that's part of your story and what you've got going on right now?
We've missed a lot, but you would have had to have had a long, long time, several days to get it all. So we'll just have to do it in the next interview.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like it. We'll definitely make it happen. Awesome.
Right.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time. Certainly appreciate you opening your home to us and having this conversation.
Thank you so much.
If you liked this episode of Titans of Industry, head to contenttitan.co/podcast for more episodes or subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. Thanks for listening.